This video is sponsored by Surfshark. At this present moment, this phone is so obviously the default Android, the purest experience of Google's software and hardware. And at this price, it's a bit of a no-brainer. So let's talk about why you should really care that this phone stands as a benchmark for its competition and a surprise alternative if you're a bit of a risk taker. Hey guys, I'm Ryan Thomason, hear me out. Superb screen, brilliant camera, elite software, very good performance, relatively compact chassis, all for $600. This is the Google Pixel 10 and I have had a bit more time with it since it came out 3 months ago and my opinions have certainly changed. This is the phone that Google wants to sell to everybody, and if you take a step back and just analyze it with a bit more of a macro scale instead of a micro one, it all kind of falls into place. I've spoken recently about how the Nexus was for enthusiasts and the Pixel was a bit more for everyone, and many of those older models weren't exactly great compared to the current HTC or Samsung models, but today Google is able to compete or even outshine its competition. Maybe because it learned how to provide for more than just a small subset of people, or maybe it was intentional all along and that initial interest from enthusiasts actually paved the way for the Pixel that we have right now. Either way, this phone is probably one that billions of people would be happy to own. And though not perfect, the price at the time of writing this video has played a massive part, so let's talk about that after a quick word from today's sponsor. What's almost become a staple of a mobile phone toolkit these days has to be a VPN. And not only does Surfshark work on our beloved Android, but also macOS, iOS, Windows and more. Surfshark lets you activate on unlimited devices and access servers across 100 locations worldwide. It not only allows you to secure your connection via tunneling your traffic, but it also lets you use websites that are more typically geo-locked or even access content that's only available on other versions of services like Netflix. Or if you're a big Premier League fan like me, being able to go on holiday and watch the game by logging into a normal streaming service is just made so simple with the VPN. There are different plans to suit your use case and some fantastic deals available for Black Friday and Cyber Monday, so check out the link in the video description to see what works best for you and get Surfshark for yourself. And a big thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring today's content. Okay, so right now you can pick one of these up for $600. That's a quarter of the price off in less than 3 months into being on the market, which takes it out of that sort of upper end price bracket into more of what is considered sort of a mid-range segment by today's standards, hanging with the likes of the OnePlus 13R and used Pixel 9 Pros. And for that kind of money, I think it's easier to stomach some of the rough edges that the Pixel 10 undoubtedly serves up in its pursuit to offer the best Pixel experience it can at a cut down price. For example, I've been pretty vocal about the base 10 being distinctly different from its predecessor in that it's closer to sort of an A series in terms of specifications in many areas, and its camera system is one of those. It uses smaller sensors than last year, but also sort of adds a 5 times telephoto camera, and for the general public, most people, the audience that this phone is aimed at, not enthusiasts, I think the output is absolutely fine. The sort of people buying this phone will be more than happy with what it offers. The camera system is just in typical Google fashion, really impressive in its consistent ability to deliver high quality photos and videos. Yes, you miss out on the crazy AI super zoom tech and the 8K video recording of the Pro model, but I don't think that many people will actually really feel that as a massive compromise when you consider the phone now costs, well, half as much as a Pixel Pro XL. At $600, this camera sure could do with bigger sensors, but the outcome, the experience, it's all more than enough for its target demographic. And Google's computational photography easily picks up where this hardware falls short. You're still getting a Pixel level camera experience, even if on paper it doesn't look quite as good. The same way this Tensor G5 processor is the same one that you'll find in the Pro and the Pro XL models. Raw benchmarks don't do it any favors, sure, but in the real world, I found that it's more than capable of things that 95% of people will actually want to do with their phone. Doom scroll, listen to music, take pictures, play basic games. These phones aren't built for people who want to sweat AAA titles, but more for those who don't mind playing the odd sort of game of golf battle, or hill climb 2, or a Clash Royale, those sorts of titles spring to mind. There is more than enough performance here for most people, and I know that because I have many friends and family who still use a Pixel 8 and have no desire to upgrade, and that thing runs the Tensor G3. It's since been revealed that the 256GB and above models get a UFS 4.0 storage, with the Pixel 10's base model, 128GB, coming with the slower UFS 3.1. If previous models are anything to go by, then these lower end models will result in just a little bit more slowdown going years down the line. The problem then becomes that if you do want to upgrade to UFS 4.0, then you have to go for 256GB, and then suddenly it's not $600 anymore and it doesn't look quite as good of a deal. But as I mentioned before, I know people who personally use the Pixel 8, Pixel 7s sometimes, and they're still more than happy with the performance. So I wouldn't let it put you off too much. If you're an enthusiast though, you might want to look elsewhere. The software support, it goes far beyond what the hardware is likely capable of though, giving you the latest version of Android in 7 years' time. That is absolutely crazy. So this should be on the latest version of Android in 2032, which is crucial for making sure your phone is able to run apps like, banking or security first programs down the line. When OS software becomes outdated, sometimes these things just throw errors. So good to know that this won't be a thing for like another 7 years. There's an awful lot to do here in the software as well. It's not just plain boring stuff. We're talking Google Gemini personal assistant, Pixel screenshots for tucking away useful information you might need down the line, Pixel Studio for generating images based on prompts, and the well-established Google Photos suite of photo and video manipulation tools. It all looks and feels like the Pixel was built around the software, not the other way around. Whether you want to use it or not, Google has done a good job of making this AI stuff integrated with the phone as a whole. And the best way I can describe the user experience is that it's just very good. Sounds like simple analysis, but when you stop thinking about the specs and the benchmarks, the raw horsepower, and you instead just go about your day to day with this phone, scrolling through socials, taking pictures and videos, writing notes, listening to music, you do come to realize that these phones are built to be quite generic, useful workhorses. All day battery life with no dramas, it's not a completely a 2-day phone, but it's still easily all day capable. And the charging, not crazy fast, but it's good enough to get the phone from 0 to 55% in a claims 30 minutes. Not insanely interesting super phones with crazy hardware. These things are built to be used by people who are in their teens and people who are right up into their 80s and 90s. Where I think the Google Pixel used to be divided sort of 2 ways into the people's A series and then the enthusiasts regular models, Google has kind of segmented its Pixel structure a bit more to offer an entry point Pixel with the A series, the general Pixel for most people with the base model, and then the Pro and the Fold options for, again, some people, not everyone, but enthusiasts. The base model is more of a balance, maybe not in raw specs, but in user experience. This is the default model that most people should buy. That's the idea. The Pixel 10 is not without its missteps, of course. I'm still intrigued by the fact they downgraded from Wi-Fi 7 to 6E. The cameras in super low light do struggle due to those actually kind of tiny sensors, particularly the zoom, which is the same sensor size as the selfie camera. Right, go figure. And I think perhaps the hardest thing that the Pixel 10 has to compete with is a second-hand Pixel 9 Pro. Same size, significantly better camera hardware, nicer textures IMO, more RAM, a thermometer if you're into that, and an LTPO panel meaning more efficiency and a better variable refresh rate. On the second-hand market, the 9 Pro sits around that sort of $550, $600 mark where the brand new Pixel is sitting right now. At $600, the Pixel 10 is a much better deal than it was when it was on launch. We all saw these discounts coming from a mile away, and I think right now it is the best Pixel for most people. What do you think of the Pixel 10? Let me know in the comment section. I know Google has limited the Pixel 10 more than previous base models. As an enthusiast, that does frustrate me, but we as enthusiasts make up such a small portion of the buying market that honestly, we have very little impact on the bottom line. Whilst you're down there in the comments, be sure to hit like if you enjoyed today's content and subscribe to never miss another upload. Thank you all so much for watching. I've been Ryan Thomas, and I will catch you later. Cheers.